75 hard. I completed it. Let's talk about it. Did I like it? Did I love it? Do I want some more of it? All right, so I completed my first round of 75 hard about 2 years ago now at this point. And I actually have a companion video to this video that if you want to check out, I'll put a link to it here, that is kind of just the full raw journey of what that looked like for me. But in this video, what I really want to talk about are the things that I like, the things that I didn't like, what lasted, and where do I go from here? So first and foremost, let's set the stage. What condition was I in whenever I started my first round of 75 hard? Physically, I was fat and out of shape. I weighed 226 pounds and I had like a 48-inch waistline. I'd really kind of let myself go quite a lot at that time. So I was definitely, not in good shape. I'd never been a runner. I'd never been an athlete. So the idea of going out and doing these really consistent workouts was actually something that was quite foreign to me. More importantly than where I was physically is where I was mentally. And that's actually why I chose to do 75 hard. So I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually dealing with the side effects or symptoms of chronic undiagnosed PTSD. And I'm going to put some videos out about all of that, including my testimony and kind of my journey of how I've gone from where I was at that time to where I am today. But essentially, a lot of the symptoms that I was dealing with included not sleeping, just being bombarded by things that I couldn't forget, having episodes where just, on my own, I'd be so depressed, or times something would come to me or come to my mind and I'd just break down crying. And because of all that, and because I wasn't talking about it, I wasn't sharing it, I wasn't facing it, from the culture that I come from, which is a law enforcement culture where you really don't share that stuff, it just made me feel so weak. It made me feel like a weak man, that I couldn't shake it. I couldn't get past it. So what I was looking for at this time was I was looking for a way to really challenge myself and prove to myself that I'm not weak. I'm not, a weak person. I'm just dealing with stuff that I really don't have control over at this time. So as I was looking at that, I found 75 hard and I thought, okay, if I can do 75 hard and I can commit to it and I can stick to it and I can follow all of it and I can really challenge myself, I can prove to myself that this is not an issue of me being weak or undisciplined. This is something more, because I believed at that time, even though I hadn't yet proven it to myself, I believed that there's a big difference between mental weakness and having challenges mentally, because you've seen stuff or you've dealt with stuff, or there are things that have happened in your life that are staying with you, right? And I did prove that to myself, but really that's the reason that I wanted to do it. So more so than losing weight or trying to get in shape or any of that stuff, for me, it was all about setting my mind to the grindstone and proving to myself that I could do and complete this program. So what were my results? Well, like I say, if you want to watch the full video and actually see, in detail, like some of the results of some of the challenges that I set myself and up for and everything like that, you can check that out. But physically, I went from 226 pounds to 202 pounds. So I lost 24 pounds and I lost 5 inches in my waist in 75 days, which is pretty remarkable. And I went from something like 38% body fat down to 27% body fat. It was a huge change in that I didn't record that, so I wish I could actually show you the statistic, but hopefully 24 pounds lost and 5 inches in my waist tells enough of that story. Physically, I went from never running, really in my life, because I was always the slowest kid in PE. I was the slowest guy in the police academy. I went from never really running to becoming an actual runner and running hundreds of miles in a month. And I set several challenges for myself along the way whenever it comes down to running, where the first goal that I set for myself was, I thought, if I can just run the full 45 minutes by the end of this program, that'll really be something for me. That felt like such a big challenge. Well, I quickly surpassed that, and I went on to, okay, I'm going to run a 5K in under 30 minutes. And I did that. And then I set another goal. I'm going to run a 10K in under an hour. And I did that. And I set another goal of like, I want to run a mile in less than 7 minutes or something like that. Right. And I did that. And then at the very end of the challenge, on the very last day, I said, okay, today I'm going to run 10 miles without stopping. So it was way beyond a 45-minute workout, right? But it was like, now I was just motivated by the goal and I was driven by the goal. And spoiler alert, I did that. I went out and did that. And then I went on to do a lot of other things, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. I read 8 books. So I read The Science of God, Can't Hurt Me, Mindset, 10% Happier, 12 Rules for Life, Chase the Lion, Atomic Habits, and The Power of One More. So I'd never read that many books in my entire life up to that point, because I'm not a book reader. I read a lot, but it's typically like articles and things that interest me, but I never read books like that. And reading 8 books in 75 days, I thought that was pretty amazing. And I'm pretty proud of that as well. So let's talk about what I really liked about the program. First and foremost, the app is simple and straightforward. So if I can get that up there and if it'll focus on it, you can see there, it just gives you this list of things that you need to do each day. And as long as you go down and you can check off all those things for the day, you're good. You've accomplished the challenge for that day. I really like that. It made it simple, easy for me to follow. And I would just check it, at the end of the night and make sure, hey, have I done everything? Before I allowed myself to go to sleep, I was checking the app to make sure that I'd completed everything. Now, you may have noticed something there. It says day 5. Spoiler alert, I'm doing it again because I need to do it again. I need to do it again for some different reasons this time, but I am doing it again. And I'm not one of those people to ask you to subscribe or anything like that. If you like me and you like what I'm putting out and you like the channel, you'll do that. But I will say that I'm in the midst of another 75 hard challenge right now. And if you stay tuned to the channel, you're going to see what that journey looks like. And I'm really filling in the gaps of things that I wasn't able to capture my first time around because I didn't really know what I was going to do with the footage. And I've got a better plan this time, and it's going to tell a more complete story. And I hope that it will encourage and inspire other people as well. So yeah, I'm on day 5, 70 more days to go there. But I like the app. It was really simple and easy to use at that time. The other thing I really liked was I grew to love the outdoor workouts. And that was really surprising for me because I thought that was going to be one of the hardest parts of the challenge. I thought braving the elements and getting out in the rain or cold or whatever, that was going to be what I really had to push myself to. But I actually had a response that was completely the opposite of that. I just came to love that time. In part, I think because I'm a believer and I use that time to put on my worship music and just to talk to God and pray for my family and pray for my friends. And I found that the more that I poured my time and my energy and my focus into thinking about other people and lifting them up, that the easier it was for me to distract myself from the physical, discomfort that I was actually in. The other part that I really liked about the outdoor workouts is I didn't know it at the time. I've learned so much about the things that I deal with since this time, but just being out in the sun helped me so much mentally. So much. Just getting out there and taking in the sun and getting the vitamin D and breathing in the fresh air did so much for me mentally. And now I know it's something that if I'm going to protect and keep myself from falling into depression and things like that, whenever I enter seasons where I can kind of feel that coming on, I know I just need to get outside. And as long as I make it a point to get outside and get that time in the fresh air and get the sunlight, that I'll do a lot better mentally. So I grew to love the outdoor workouts, and I love that it really pushed me to make it a point to get outside every day. Like I mentioned before, I really actually loved the reading portion of it because I could never imagine that in 75 days I would read 8 books ever. Like I said before, I am a reader. I read a lot, but it's just articles and news and things that interest me and things like that. And reading those books, because it really forced me into a situation where I had to read books that were nonfiction. So I chose books that I thought would help inspire me and encourage me. So they were like self-improvement and things like that. And not only was I proud of the accomplishment of just the amount of books that I read, but also some of those books, I mean, really just kept me going. One in particular, which is David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. And I know people got a lot of feelings about David Goggins. Whatever. You can't say his book and his story are not inspiring. But for me in particular, hearing somebody else's story told in such a raw way, and the trauma that they were dealing with, and the trauma that I was trying to deal with myself and process myself, and I was in the battle of trying to find a way out of it, hearing somebody else's story where they overcame some really bad stuff like that, it drove me, because I just kept telling myself, I may not be a David Goggins, but if he can do it, I can do it. I can give my best effort here. And I listened to that book, after I read it all the way through. I put it on audiobook, and I listened to that book several times during the course of this challenge whenever I felt myself kind of, second guessing myself and can I keep going or whatever. That book was a major impact on my life. And I'm really glad that the challenge made me read those books. Otherwise, I would have never found it. The other thing that I liked, which was quite surprising, was that the challenge forces you to take a picture every day. Now, I am not one of those people that is just gonna, take a picture of myself every day just for the heck of it, because quite frankly, at that time, and even where I'm at now, and one of the reasons that I'm redoing the challenge, I didn't like the way my body looked. Why do you want to take a picture and memorialize, the state of your body if you're unhappy with it, right? But when I got to the end of the challenge and I was able to see that progression, not only day by day, but especially day 1 compared to day 75, man, you worked hard, you feel it, and you understand that you did everything, but until you actually see that image of yourself side by side, it really doesn't hit home just how much your body has actually changed and how much everything impacted you. And I know y'all want to see, before and after pictures. Look, guys, I'm a really modest guy. I don't even take my shirt off around the house, around my family. So that's not going to happen. I hope the results that I shared is enough, but let me just tell you that the pictures matter. And I really did enjoy the results of what I was able to see, especially in the end, because the app forced me to take those pictures. The other thing that I really liked about the program and came to appreciate was that it requires you to follow a diet and you can't have any cheat meals. And those are actually 2 separate things there. The other one is actually no alcohol and no cheat meals. Well, I don't drink alcohol, so it was really just no cheat meals for me. But what happened is I found myself in situations where if I didn't have this very strict rule of you cannot have a cheat meal, you must follow the diet, then events would come up like, a birthday or something like that, and they've got pizza there, and you think to yourself like, yeah, I'm trying to eat good, I'm on a diet or whatever, but one piece of pizza is not going to hurt anything. And so I was really cognizant to those situations where if before, when I wasn't held to that very strict set of rules, I could have definitely seen myself just, being lenient and thinking, one piece of pizza, what's one donut, what's one this? But I couldn't do it on this program. I could not do it or I'd fail. So I liked that. I liked that if I wanted to complete this challenge, I had to hold true to those rules. I had to follow the diet and I couldn't have any cheat meals at all. So I really did grow to appreciate that as well. All right. With all that said, I mostly like this program. That's why I'm doing it again right now. I'm appreciative for this program. But let me tell you, there are some things about this program that I don't like at all. I don't agree with. I think they're stupid, but it is what it is. It's the program that it is. And yeah, there's definitely some things that I did not like. Okay, so the very first thing that I've got to put out there that I absolutely hated was whenever I started 75 Hard the first time and I got the app on the App Store, I had to pay $5 for it. I don't know if it's free now. All I know is I paid for it, okay? I paid for the app and the program. And whenever I got that app, they automatically put me on an email list. And I got bombarded with emails. Matter of fact, even to this day, if I pull up my spam email, and I'm just going to filter by Andy Frisella, you will see I'm still, focus, camera focus. I am still getting bombarded. January 17, January 17, January 15, January 15, January 8, January 8th, by all of these emails. I did not sign up for this. I paid for the app. I did not sign up to be on an email list I paid for the app, number one. I didn't sign up to be on an email list, number two. Number three, multiple emails a day, on some days, and for sure, numerous emails throughout a week. And number four, so many of the emails don't have anything to do with why I wanted to do the 75 Hard challenge. Like, this is the biggest thing that really, really turned me off. And as a matter of fact, it's made me not want to support the creator in some of his other endeavors. So I know that there is a 75 Hard companion book, and I know that he's got a podcast and he's got all this stuff. I would have probably gotten the book and read the book if he didn't do this. But because he did this, number one, and then number two, because the content of so much of the emails and stuff has nothing to do with 75 Hard, and it's really mostly political and everything, very right-wing political stuff, and whether you're right-wing, left-wing, whatever. At that time in my life when I was starting this challenge, I was also completely off of social media because I didn't want to see any of the politics of anything. And then I do this and this dude starts bombarding me with political content, So huge L for me. Absolutely hate that. And even though I've unsubscribed, you see I still, I've got a filter on so it all goes to spam, but even though I unsubscribed, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop the emails. So I find that pretty ridiculous, and I absolutely hated that. The next thing that I really did not like about the program is that audiobooks don't count, and that's very explicit in there. So whenever you read, you have to actually physically be reading the page. And I understand it. They don't want people to just passively be listening to something and say, oh, I read, right? They want people to actually be focused and taking in what they're doing. The problem with that, though, and it being so rigid in that way, is that people learn in different ways. This is actually what I do for a living. I'm a learning strategist. And for me, if I'm just sitting trying to read words on a page, I have to reread them over and over and over. And you'll see I think I put it in my full video, there where I talk about how some days just reading 10 pages would take me 45 minutes to an hour. I know that sounds terrible, but I couldn't focus. And I would reread and reread. And it was just a miserable experience for me. Finally, what I figured out I could do is I would buy two versions of the book. So I would buy the Kindle version and then I'd buy the Audible version, and they have whisper sync so that I could read the words on the page while the narration was going, because I'm an auditory learner. That is what sticks with me the most. That's why, like I alluded to before, after I, read David Goggins' book. I bought the Audible version and went out and listened to it over and over. And I got to tell you, I caught so many more things, and I took in so much more of that content through listening to it than I did the first time actually reading it. So I feel like that's just a very narrow rule that doesn't factor in learning conditions and the way that different people do things. It can be incredibly discouraging to try to get through this program, even if you know you are really trying to take in the content. It's hard to carve out an hour of your day to read. So I absolutely hated that. Don't agree with that approach at all. The next thing, and this is probably my most hated part of this challenge, because I'm reliving it again right now, and I gotta tell you, it's this right here. It is the water, you all. You're required to drink a gallon a day. By the way, my water's not dirty. I've got some liquid IV in there. But you're required to drink a gallon a day. And this is a half gallon, so I've got to drink 2 of these a day. On the surface, that may not sound hard, but it is just miserable. And it creates a number of different challenges. So number one, the biggest problem that I think, exist with just a blanket, you got to drink a gallon of water, is people are all different sizes and weights. I can't even imagine, a 110-pound woman trying to drink a gallon. And I know there's going to be somebody out there that's going to say, well, if you go read on the forums or if you read the book or whatever, you know what? I bought the app. Everything I need to know should be included in that app. So if there are little caveats and things like that, people need to understand, that if, make sure the water intake matches your body weight, well, then it needs to be included here in this. I shouldn't have to go out and search on forums to find the nuances or go buy another book or anything like that, right? And if you take it at face value for exactly what the app says, just to show everyone, drink 1 gallon of water. If you just take it at face value for what that is, I think that it's a very poorly planned part of the challenge. So for me, I know that I'm a big enough guy that, yeah, I can handle a gallon of water. And I understand the purpose, right? It's you need to be well hydrated. There are a lot of benefits to being well hydrated. And myself, I can guarantee that I was chronically underhydrated. So this forced me to take in more fluid and hydrate myself properly the way that I needed to. That's all great, right? But the problems are, like I mentioned before, not everyone's the same, a lot of different body shapes, body sizes and everything. But even if you can handle a gallon of water, y'all, you have to get out and you have to exercise outside for 45 minutes. And if you're like me and you're a runner, being away from your house for 45 minutes at a time when you've been drinking this much fluid can even become a problem. It's like I am constantly in the restroom, just constantly in the restroom. In addition to that, it interrupted my sleep. And I'm going through that again right now, where towards the end of the day, right, if I haven't perfectly timed how much water I've been intaking throughout the day, towards the end of the day, I'm just trying to gulp it down and get the water in so that I don't fail the challenge. And then I wake up 3 or 4 times throughout the night because I have to pee so bad. I absolutely hate this part of the challenge. Also, I don't like water or the taste of water. So, it's just miserable for me. So I think I'm going to have to find a way this time around to, make my water a little bit more appealing to me, maybe put some of that flavor in it or whatever. But absolutely the worst part of the entire program for me. The next part of the challenge that I don't really like, but I understand, so there's the caveat. I don't like it, but I understand it, is that there are no rest days. And for me, whenever I first started my first round, and you'll see it if you go watch my video, I thought, this is 75 hard. I got to go hard, right? I got to go hard, 2 workouts a day, 7 days a week. And I almost immediately injured myself and spent the next 3-4 weeks babying my knee because I went way too hard, way too fast. And as a result of that, I really probably needed to just take some days and rest. But I didn't fully understand like what an active rest day is. So I wish instead of no rest days, I wish that they had some days that were labeled as like active rest days. I wish the program kind of forced you into an active rest day and explained to you what an active rest day is, where, hey, it's okay to walk. And that may sound like a really simple statement, but honestly, whenever I first went into it, I didn't know it was okay to walk. I thought if I walked, I wasn't, doing what I needed to do. And I did go onto the forums and start reading some stuff and everything. And people said, remember, the purpose of the challenge is if you're outside doing something you wouldn't normally do, then you're meeting the intent of the challenge. And that made me feel better. It's like, okay, I can go walk. But again, if you're just taking the program at face value, you wouldn't know that. So I get why there's no rest days, but I wish that there was just a little bit more structure in there to kind of force people to take some active rest days. Okay, so what lasted for me? Immediately after completing 75 hard, I set my next goal. So I told you on my last day of 75 hard, I ran 10 miles straight. And immediately after that was done, I went and I signed up for a half marathon. And that's something that's really worked well for me, is just continually setting new goals, right, to go out and attain and achieve. And I actually continued the full 75 hard regimen, 2 workouts a day, everything. I continued it for like 120 days. So that process actually stuck with me for a long time until I hit the summertime here, and I'll explain a little bit more about what happened with that. But I set that goal to go out and run a half marathon, and I ran a half marathon. And I've got some video of that, and I'm planning on posting that soon too as well. In addition to that, I also set other goals to go out and run obstacle course races. So I ran multiple Tough Mudders, multiple Spartan sprints, and ultimately what 75 hard did for me was it springboarded me into chasing the hardest goal that I'd ever chased and would go on to accomplish, and that was running a full marathon. So later in that year, I went out and I trained and I chased that, and I was able to run a full marathon. And that's another video that I'm working on putting together as well, is my experience with doing that. The other thing that I've done is I've continued to read. Now, do I buy the Audible version and the Kindle version for everything? No, I don't. Now that I'm doing 75 hard again, I mean, that's what I'm having to do. But I bought a ton of audiobooks, and I've continued to read those books, and that's now just an integrated part into my life. So I've become a reader through the process that 75 hard forced me into. So what didn't last? Well, like I say, for about 120 days, I did everything just exactly the same. And then, unfortunately, around my 40th birthday, a few things happened. And I really cratered. I really crashed. And that's where everything that I was dealing with, while I was trying to just make my mind stronger, but and it helped me, and I did a lot with that. But what I realized was that was treatment of the symptom, not the cause. So for me, I'd been fighting so hard mentally for so long that I grew weary. And then several things happened in my life that triggered some events, some personal things, some things with family, some other non-related things that just happen to be triggers associated to some of the stuff that I deal with. And in also the Texas weather, it started to get so hot that I couldn't run outside and I couldn't enjoy it. And I fell right back down to where I was. So all these things happened. I didn't enjoy being outside. I stopped running over the summertime. I got really depressed. I became really isolated. And it was at that point that I realized, okay, I've done all this stuff to challenge myself, but there's still something, very broken. There's something I'm not dealing with, and just trying to be mentally strong isn't going to be enough. And that's when I finally decided, okay, I'm going to go get some help. And I started therapy to treat my PTSD. That's where I was officially diagnosed with chronic PTSD and started going through the process of treatment. Over the summer, I was in very intense therapy sessions, working through that. So that's kind of took all of my energy. As it started to get a little bit cooler after the summer, I'd already signed up for the marathon. So that's where I started to work my way back up, and eventually I got back to running, and I got back to moving and going and everything like that. So that was kind of a pitfall that I fell into. And then, like, how did I end up where I'm at now, where I've essentially gained all the weight back? Even after I ran my marathons, I stopped running again and everything. Well, that is a totally different story, because what actually happened is I spent about a year in therapy treating all of this untreated trauma, right? And I finally found peace. And when I finally found peace after a lifetime of just war, really, I gave myself time to rest, to be honest with you. And I'm going to put out a video that I'm going to entitle How I Lost Myself by Finding Peace, because what happened was all these things that used to drive me. So like in the beginning, I was driven to do 75 hard because I felt mentally weak. Now I didn't have those same drivers. I knew I wasn't mentally weak. I knew there was something else going on with me. And I did the hard work to take care of it and to treat it and to be better. And now it's like I was just at a moment where I was like, I could just take a breath. I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I don't have any battles to fight anymore. So in that, that's great, but I also completely lost my drive. And while I was giving myself and allowing myself the time to rest, I also just, I quit working out and I became lazy and gained a lot of weight and everything. And now I'm back to where I am now. I would say if it weren't for those kind of larger life events happening to me, I do believe that so much of what I accomplished with 75 Hard would have stayed with me even longer than 120 days. And again, that leads me to why I'm doing it again. And I believe that I'm going to do this again, and it's going to be the springboard that I need once again. Now that I'm not driven or motivated by the same things, I have a different reason for doing this. I believe that I have a much higher likelihood of these things sticking and lasting in my life once I reestablish the habits. And I'd written, I got some bullet points here, and I'd written, so would I do it again, or would I do it again differently? Well, I've already spoiled that. Yeah, I'm doing it again. But what would I do differently? What would I do differently? Well, first and foremost, in the beginning, whenever I first started 75 Hard, it was like, man, I went cold turkey, right? So I changed everything. I changed my diet. I changed how active I was. I changed all of it. And that was a lot to put my body through right in the very beginning. So I'm detoxing from sugar. I'm taking in all this water, and I'm doing 2 workouts a day. You can imagine the shock that takes place to your body. And I just felt horrible. So this time around, what I actually did was I took the week leading up to starting the challenge, and I just used that week to start getting lightly active again. I started walking every day and cleaned up my diet so that I could at least get the whole detox portion of my diet out of the way, go straight into the challenge, not dealing with the sugar crash or anything, and actually feel pretty good. And I've got to say, it really, really worked. It made a huge difference. So if you're considering doing this program, I would definitely recommend that. Start a week earlier. Start moving. Let yourself, work out some of that. Because even if you haven't done anything, even just going for a walk, you're going to be sore. But primarily, let your body adjust to the nutrition changes that are about to take place. That was a massive, massive, massive help this time around for me. The other thing that I'm doing different is I'm really focusing on making sure I'm eating enough protein this time around. Last time I was primarily just focused on going low calorie. And yes, I lost a lot of fat, but I also lost muscle in the process. So this time I'm going to try to maintain as much muscle mass as I can as I work to lose the fat and the body weight. So I'm really prioritizing eating 1 gram of protein for, my lean body mass. So for me, it's like 150 something grams of protein. But I'm really trying to make that a priority this time around. The other thing that I'm really doing differently, and I mentioned this earlier, is I'm not going to neglect the importance of electrolytes through this process, especially as I get further along and I start to really challenge myself again, and I'm just sweating buckets, after my workouts and everything. So what I've started doing is, on this first round of water, is I get 1 packet of liquid IV and I place it in there, and that gives me electrolytes throughout, enough electrolytes to last me throughout the day. And it really, really, really helps, especially when you're drinking this much water. You're flushing out so many electrolytes, and then you're sweating and everything. So last time I really neglected my electrolyte intake, and I was getting headaches and things like that. And then I would just take kind of like a pinch of salt, and wash it down. This time I'm doing it smarter. I like the liquid IV. It's expensive, but it's pretty mild, and this is what works well for me. So I'm prioritizing that as well. The other thing that I'm doing completely different this time, because I learned so many lessons the hard way. Again, I'm going to put out additional videos on everything I learned becoming a new runner, because that's primarily the type of exercise that I did. Was I did not have the right gear. I just grabbed some old, shoes that I had, and I went out and I got after it, and I ended up with I lost 3 toenails and ended up with shin splints, injured my knee and everything. And so much of what I went through could have been avoided if I had prioritized or understood the importance of proper gear. Just having the right foot gear goes miles. One thing that I didn't know was, whenever you're running, you actually need to have, you need to size your shoes to where they're about a size larger than you would typically wear, because your feet are going to swell. That's why I lost my toenails. My toenails turned totally black and everything, because my shoes were just too small for running. I didn't know that. I had no idea. So of course, over the process, I really started to research more and understand what was important. So if you're going to begin this journey, I definitely recommend start off well. Take care of your feet. Take care of your body. Chafing is another massive thing. That may sound silly, but I'm telling you right now, you will get chafed. Your inner thighs, your chest, you know what I'm saying? Those things will get chafed. Take care of all that stuff. Don't learn those lessons the hard way like I did. This time, I've got the right gear. I'm protected. I'm taking care of myself, and I'm having a much better experience so far. So overall, everyone, I hope that my experience, what I learned, kind of what I went through, I hope that this has been valuable, beneficial to you. Again, if you want to check out the companion video and just see my raw, uncut journey, feel free to check that out. All the things that I've mentioned here, so like liquid IV and some of the gear that I like, I'll try to link that down below so that in case you're interested, you have it. Again, if you enjoyed this, if it was valuable to you, and you want to see the other videos that I'm going to be posting, not only about my physical challenges, but just how I'm navigating life and how I'm working through difficult things, feel free to stick around. I'm going to have more videos coming out soon, including this round of 75 hard that I'm currently completing right now. I hope if you take this challenge on, you have the same life-altering experience that I had. I believe in you. I know you can do it because I did it. And if I could do it, you can do it. Take care.